All right, bringing up the presentation. We'll be watching chat just to make sure that people can see it. I do believe you'll need to click on and give it focus to get it going. I'll give Ryan a second to pop back as well. Good to see everybody in the new year. Happy Lunar New Year to all those celebrating. It has been an intense 2024 already over here at Immutable, and so much learning since we got back from our holidays. There is a lot to go through today, and I have a hard stop at 10:30, so I will have to end it right on time. But I'll have more for you at the end, depending on where we get to on things. Yeah, let's get started. The big thing, regional test launch in Canada has been what the team has really been focusing on. It has been full tilt, both with us here at Immutable, on our learnings, data, growth, everything, and over at MindLoader, as we've been working to update the game regularly to address issues as we see them. High-level scope of this, just in Canada, it is Web 2 only, paid marketing only. We aren't doing any sort of like big social media engagement, influencers, things like that at this stage. We're looking, for a small scale test of essentially retention, monetization, and an opportunity to look at longer term balance of the product among not just our hardcore. We've been in Beautiful Corner and friends and family with basically the GOG community, the biggest supporters of the project, but seeing how things perform in the wild, essentially, with gamers who have so much choice with which to spend their time. The content in it is the Web 2 Guardians, our full story dungeons, and endless events. Things have been going pretty well. The ratings coming through on both the app stores are solid, if not perfect. Apple is going better than Android. Metrics across the board are roughly 1.5 times stronger on Apple than Android. We've narrowed this down to key Android performance issues that we're working on closely with MindLoader. MindLoader is on break right now for the Lunar New Year, but they'll be back to work essentially this Sunday to focus in on Android performance in particular. Lots of feedback. Oh my gosh, we have been processing so much feedback from the community, so much that we're using to triangulate through to the data. Thank you so much to everybody who's sending through their feedback on the product that are in and able to play. It's been super useful to the team. Both the positive feedback that has been coming through and the feedback on improvements. There has been a lot of points that we've been able to address. There's been things that we're still working on, but having community feedback to help triangulate is super valuable. And this one in particular is one that is definitely front of mind, just essentially where energy is at. Essentially GOG's demand on time. This is something we knew from friends and family in particular, but we're still working to fully address. Diving straight into the numbers. So I'm going to pull up Slack to make sure that if I crash again in Discord, since I'm focused in on the presentation, that I can see it. At a high level, D1 target is 40% for us. 40% essentially means that you are in that top echelon of mobile games heading towards a hit. Where we're at right now on iOS is an average of 31.5, and on Android, 23.7. This is obviously below where we would want to be for the target, but still workable, if that makes sense. We have a clear path from where we're at right now to bring those numbers up into line. For D7, we're aiming at a target of 20%. D7 average on iOS right now is 14.9, and on Android, 11.1. One of the highlights for me when looking at the data is D1 is further behind than I would like. But D1 to D7, that sort of decline is in line with what I would expect, actually trending a little bit better than I would expect for the mobile product. Since launch, some of the key improvements that we've made go through Passport. So in the first week, Passport was a huge pain, having to basically confirm login multiple times anytime you relaunched the app. Issues on Android with Passport coming up with web pages at inappropriate times. We've resolved all those issues and definitely sped up the flow. Went from much longer load times to get into the game to much faster, dropping about 10 seconds off with Passport optimization. We've been doing a lot of work on the Fatutian narrative as well. This is something I'll get to more in the specific slides, but there's been more drop-off in certain stages of the first-time user experience, particularly the initial tutorial, than expected. And we've been looking at how we massage that in the narrative to improve that retention. Reconnect is one of the things that was huge in both Beautiful Corner and Friends and Family as feedback that we did not get fully addressed for this regional test launch. But that box no longer pops up unless something has gone catastrophically wrong. You can put your phone down, flip over, and it will reconnect for you, which is much smoother than it's been in the past. And then a lot of work into balance, particularly of the bosses and endless that I can touch on more. Looking at the funnel, some of what we're really going to be focused on are a couple of key drops that are seeing people basically leave before they even really get to play the game. Once we get people through that first hour, they've run a couple of dungeons, they're retaining well. But as you can sort of see in that funnel off to the right, there's a big drop-off on game update. We're losing around 10% of players who, when they see the download, they basically nope out. We're then losing about 25% of players between the start of the tutorial and the end of the tutorial. The tutorial ends when Leah basically kills the big spider monster and leaves your party. 25% of people aren't getting to that stage. So we're looking a lot at the tutorial and how we fix that drop. The good news in all of these numbers is that is unexpected to see that big a drop during the tutorial stages. And addressing that one key element likely brings us much closer in line to our retention targets. And actually, that's what I just talked about. Basically, these two drop points. On the game update, we are looking at running a test potentially as early as next week, where what we're going to do is move all of the data into the App Store download itself. It will be a larger download, but there'll be no download once you get into the product. This has downsides, as it will limit some of the ability for us to fix bugs without a brand new client, but it should give us more information on how much that initial download in the app is impacting our retention funnel. It's not a long-term solution, but it's going to be a really good way for us to just test some theories and get data out of that. The longer-term solution here is essentially aiming to reduce the initial download once you fire up the game, get that down to a much smaller size, hopefully under 300 megabytes, and then have more of the game download in the background as you're going through that initial tutorial and make the experience more seamless. The other side of it is, that tutorial. We are at the point now where we've done a lot of iterative changes to it, and what we may have to do is a more complete refactor. We want to take the time that players are in the tutorial down from about 10 minutes to 6. A lot of the anecdotal feedback we're seeing is the tutorial really has you on rails a bit too long, and people aren't sticking through to the end. They want to get to play the game. So we will be looking at that. On D7 retention, the biggest issue that I see from the feedback, from the data, from the analytics, is time commitments and energy. This has been a little bit of a misalignment between myself and MindLoader on amount of playtime. I want to bring the amount of required playtime down. It is insanely high still at the moment. They had said they were going to take total playtime down into like the 3 to 4 hour range. You can very easily, with energy available, be well beyond that. And this is without additional systems in the mix. As we look to add guilds and guild raids and guild engagement, this will increase it further. So one of the places we're really honing in on the design is how energy works. The goal for energy is that energy tells you you've played enough and you should step away and then come back in a bit. Right now, the energy in GOG is consistently telling you you have not played enough. And that is not a great place for the game systems to be. And we do believe this is impacting D7 retention and beyond. Basically looking at enabling you to do more short cycle sessions with energy spend to be able to pop on if you've got a moment. You potentially auto run some dungeons very quickly and get rewards so that you can then get to the harder challenges and have that be your big session of GOG, where when you're looking to advance to that next dungeon, you can take the time to do a full dungeon run. But it's not something that every single dungeon grind has to be long, and it can be quite long right now. Balance. This is a big topic. One of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing at the moment is that commander level is the primary gate. There are other gates around equipment and powering up the equipment, but often you've got all of your guardians that you're in your primary squad at max level, and it's commander level that you're waiting on. I've gotten to the point where I'm doing what I would consider toxic behaviors of I've figured out how to advance commander level by essentially just quickly failing top level dungeons by sending a single rear guardian a level 1. That still gives you full commander XP for the dungeon run. That is not a good place to be when you've got your game director basically gaming things. This will be an ongoing thing in sessions with Mindloader. On that front, next week I'm flying out to Singapore initially to meet up with the marketing team for some in-person planning, and then on to Shanghai. We've got a week of sessions with Mindloader. Josiah will be joining me there to focus in on a lot of these basically balance and design issues that we want to get solid iterative designs on. And ship in regional tests to see the impact on those retention targets. We'll also be talking a fair bit about launches, which I will get to in just a little bit. Last thing we're testing is monetization. Seeing how Web2 monetization would work, testing our offerings. I would say this has been a bit of a bright spot on the metric front. A key to any mobile game's success is whales, and what we've seen so far is that the Web2 monetization is strong, and we're on track to hit our targets. We're essentially looking at D7 ROI and D30 ROI. We haven't gotten all the way to D30 yet, but the initial D7 ROI checkpoint was in really good shape. This is flexible because it depends also on how much we're spending on ads. So this is something that we can also tank if our growth funnel and how we're using paid ads to get players in isn't working quite right. But a lot of this is getting all of these functions working together well on GOG before we go to global launch, so we know how to run the playbook. The road ahead. So where are we at? Boom! Q1, we hit regional test launch. We have launched that successfully, and it's been huge. From my position as game director, it's been great to exercise all the different functions beyond just development, getting to really dive into our data and analytics and strengthen that, getting to work with the growth team on getting players into the game and seeing what's working, what's not. Finally getting to this stage where we can do a lot of this live has been so helpful in rapidly iterating. Q2 global launch, we are still on track. We had hoped to be launching a little bit earlier in Q2. We are still within Q2 for our window. That, as always, could change. A lot of it comes down to the data. You only really get one chance to launch. It's not completely true in mobile. There is a sort of repetitive approach of an initial launch. You usually acquire a bunch of users and decline. You use all of that time that the game is live to basically continue to iterate and hone things in. And often this is chasing, fractions of percent of improvements in the funnel until you get to that point where you can then really ramp up ad spend again to grow. So we want to make sure that the initial launch is good so that we can have the time we need to continue to build Guild of Guardians. On track. Next big thing up is the ZKevm migration of both NFTs and then following that tokens. These are on track. We have had feedback from members of the community saying this window for GOG is too small. I hear it. It's something that I will discuss with the team further, but it is, trade-offs. We are aiming to get as many people across. We will announce this in all of the forums, send the emails, trying to make sure that we have everyone in hand for that migration. But we do need to make this migration as soon as possible so that we can get to the next stage, which is the ZKevm read-only test, which is our next major sort of milestone beyond migration in that that march to global launch. What we're looking at the moment is this will be an extension of the regional test launch in Canada. We will add Australia into the mix most likely. Part of that is just testing. We've found it particularly challenging to test some of the systems as it is launched in Canada, and most of the team is based in Australia. So by having it also launch in Australia, it'll give us easier access just to testing things cleanly through the app stores and not the test functions. Scope would be basically Web 2 and Web 3 read-only. And essentially the test here is to really exercise all of the systems associated with ZKevm and to test the way Web3 Guardians. So this will allow players who are in this regional test to play with the Web3 Guardians that they have in their wallet. And it will allow us to exercise all of those functions throughout the pipeline. Beyond that, we go to global launch. That is a much bigger topic, and we will talk more about that in the near future. Okay, deep breath. I got through that pretty quick, which is good because we have an absolute ton of AMA questions. Let's see, anything in chat? Nope, looks like pretty good. I'm still talking and on stage. So yeah, let's dive in here. White paper questions. So we were told that Warrior Elite Mythic will have another out of game utility. Why is nothing on this in the white paper, and will sacrificing chromas yield more radiant souls? So this is a mea culpa on my part. When I had built the slide, I had thought that the altar was going to be part of the white paper, and it is not currently planned to be. The altar is what we were talking about here in terms of this extra layer of utility. Essentially, chromas and their relative scarcity will allow for unique recipes within the altar that can lead to more exciting outputs of that system. Altar is coming along nicely. We are a little bit behind on its delivery, and I think this is part of where I was at in December. I thought we were much closer to being able to launch the altar. We do want to release that before Guild of Guardians is launched in global launch. It's another tool for us to exercise functionality on ZKevm. Also an ability for us to give the initial NFTs some more utility and test out, like, just, is this a system that works the way I think it will work? Will it let us work with other people on ZKevm as I think it will work? We shall find out. On the question of will sacrificing chromas yield more radiant souls, they are currently not expected to confer additional radiant souls. This is something that if we have not gotten this right in the community's opinion, drop in feedback. We will definitely look at it. White paper. Why does it say in the white paper in the section about energy tokens that there is a fatigue system? So the first white paper update was just that, just the first update. We have not gotten all of the updates through into it that we will and that we need to before global launch. We are still working to get basically the internal stakeholders aligned on guilds, pets, and energy tokens for global launch. Some of this aligns with just like energy is not in a good place in the game right now. We need to get that into a good place and then make sure that energy tokens are adding into it. Right now, energy tokens would not fly in Guild of Guardians because it would just require even more time, probably spent sending you beyond 24 hours, which is not where we want them to be. We want to make sure that energy tokens have appropriate in-game benefits, and it's something that people are seeking out. I should want a energy token, and right now I do not, and that is not a great place. The fatigue system that was asked about in this is going to be deprecated in favor of more friendly approaches to energy. This was an initial design for the older version of Guild of Guardians and not something that we want because it is an anti-engagement system. Yes, it would in theory require more Guardians in the mix, but I don't think it's so in a good way. So when the white paper is updated, fatigue will be removed. White paper, there's nothing about PFPs in the white paper. It seems like a simple thing to implement them as PFPs in game. Is this still just a maybe? Yes, this is still just a maybe. As I talked about the last time we had talked about the PFPs, it is luckily for us at the moment not another place where a lot of promises were made. And while it isn't a huge feature, it is still a feature on the list. It still needs to be built. It still needs to be tested. It still needs to be integrated across ZKevm and the Web2 app. And we are very tight on our timelines. We've got room for iteration in the mix. We have room for things to go right and some things to take less time, and then PFPs could potentially pull in. But I'm definitely not promising it for a global launch. I would not gate global launch on the fact that PFPs haven't been integrated yet. This is essentially what it comes down to. I would like to have them. The hooks are in place to have them. It is just a question of whether it is implemented for global launch or beyond. GOG tokens to ZKEVM. And actually, Ryan, if you could help me out. If there are questions popping up in chat, can you send them through to me on Slack?
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, and my
Can you
current,
hear me now?
I can only see this.
Can you hear me now, Clay?
Yeah. Will GOG holders be required to pay their own gas to move their tokens to the new Immutable ZKVM? Short answer is yes. We will be launching a web portal that will allow players to pretty quickly migrate from Immutable X to ZKVM in 3 steps. The website will guide people through, but the gas fees will be something the players have to pay for. We are working with the foundation to incentivize people to make that move, as we know that people with less GOG tokens, those gas fees are going to be non-trivial. Gas is a thing. Especially on L1. If you hold more than 50 GOG tokens on Immutable X by 10 a.m. on February 9th, and continue to hold them, essentially we'll be doing distribution of GOG tokens based on that. Your audio has background static sound. All right. Is it better? Or still staticky?
Yeah, there's like a weird staticky sound at the we can hear you clearly, but it sounds like you're in the ocean or something.
That is interesting. Let me take 1 second.
Oh wait. I think we keep talking. I think you might be good now.
Yeah, it's.
Yep, perfect. It's
I am not
now.
sure.
It's good now. It's good.
I'm gonna try. I did. No, it's not my Bluetooth. Huh. All right. Hopefully that stays good. But essentially, yeah, to help with the paying of the gas fees, we will be distributing GOG to those who have tokens on ZKEVM. More details of that, all the fine print will be coming out with essentially the website to migrate. Regional test launch. Do you think it's too easy to get a legendary hero in the current regional test? I have a team of legendary level 75 guardians, and I haven't spent any money in the shop. I also have not. I wouldn't say I'm using legendary guardians for my whole team, but I also have a good chunk of legendary guardians just from play. This is something that we're continuing to test. We want players to have a chance to earn legendary guardians, but it is also a journey beyond just getting that initial legendary. There is a lot that is needed to get essentially from having a legendary guardian all the way up to max enlightenment when you're moving them over to Web3. We're also seeing players starting to catch on to the meta of having legendary guardians is good. They can definitely give you a power boost and get you through some of the stages, particularly in 1 and 2. But just having that initial legendary guardian starts to fade, and having a squad of epic guardians or even epic and rare guardians that are max starred up in their enlightenment levels can be more impactful than having a legendary guardian of a lower star level. So it's them having the legendary, we think, is good in terms of retention, in terms of keeping free-to-play players around and getting them to the point where they will enter into the economy and monetize and seek out those additional legendary guardians to max startup. Do we have this right? Definitely not locked in, but something that we will continue to test. Some of this will come down to, when it comes to minting the Guardians on Web3, the advantage state will go to those who mint sooner, with essentially a increasing cost to mint Guardians the more that have been previously minted. So those who essentially monetize and get their Guardians across sooner will have an advantage over those in the sort of free-to-play path. But we don't want to exclude the free-to-play path. So we will see. Feedback very welcome on this in the regional test feedback for anyone who is playing through. Regional test launch. How many downloads did we have with Canada, the Canada regional test, and how many new players came with it? And had there been any marketing done to promote the game in Canada? So total downloads to date, 4,795. Of those, 3,175 have been organic, 1,620 have been paid. The reason I have an asterisk on the organic here is with the way that privacy works, particularly on Apple, we don't always know exactly who came through paid, because Apple will essentially deliver us a report saying you had this many people that opted out of privacy. So some of those organics have come through paid channels as well. We just can't track them accurately. Outside of those numbers, we've also removed about 7,000 bots from this. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a later slide, but we have been actively looking at how bots are entering, where they're entering from. We're using this to build out systems that let us easily identify them and essentially remove them from our analytics and target them to be banned. But yeah, a lot of bots, more than I was expecting, that we've had to deal with, but also a good first crack at seeing with what they're doing. We've targeted both iOS and Android users in our marketing efforts. It's much easier to get paid users through Android than iOS. But we've been focusing on iOS as we work to address the Android issues, with Android performing more poorly in terms of overall retention, just with some of the performance issues on the devices. But that is the numbers to date. Regional test launch. Does the GOG team plan to reduce the time and unnecessary clicks? No decision or thought required to progress through the rooms. This is something that I think I suggested week 1, just in my own playing, where if you've got just one room, there really isn't a need to bring up the UX to show the player. Can we just guide them through? It's also mixed with feedback from my end that in more places, and I would like more meaningful choice rather than just getting a healing room that you've got to go to the healing room. Very happy that we got the choice to not heal and get some dungeon coins instead there as a choice. But, being able to choose an alternate to go to another combat room is something that I would like. But yes, this optimization is something that I think would be good for the product overall. Just needs to bubble up the queue to get to implementation. Regional test launch. Will there be a UI UX update before launch, giving us less clicks per run, clear labeled options instead of tiny unlabeled buttons, and more accessible in-game data? Thank you so much for the screen, sort of expressing what you were talking about. There isn't currently a major overall plan that would completely change each of the interfaces. Feedback like you provided here is definitely useful and appreciated. Some of the space that you're using here, though, is used by the UX. Like when you click on a piece of gear, it occupies those 2 purple boxes to the left. Not every button will have a label. Just too much text, too much noise. I do agree in many cases on the scale of buttons being particularly difficult to click. That is something that the UI UX team will continue to iterate on. But yeah, thank you for the feedback. I would say, in general, for people who are in the regional test, if you've got feedback on places where you're struggling with UI UX, if you've got places where discovery was hard, I know that it took me too long in the new UI to figure out how to sacrifice my guardians. Basically, clicking on the list view to bring up the additional tabs on the bottom. So yeah, areas like that where we can work to improve those UX flows is certainly appreciated. The other side of it is negative space in UI does serve purpose. If everything is completely filled, it can cause issues all its own because then the eyes don't know where to look. Yeah, an ongoing battle. Definitely hear the feedback on the 2 small buttons. It's interesting, on iOS, clicking them isn't an issue for me. It's more of an issue on Android, and I'm not quite sure why. But definitely some click tests that I have failed, which I shouldn't have. What's the plan or idea to address playtime issues? The current playtimes are too long and definitely wouldn't allow for other content like guild, raids, and PvP. Absolutely 100% agree. This has been something that the team's been working with MindLoader on prior to MindLoader going on their new Lunar New Year holiday, and will be one of the things we pick up immediately as they get back. Time demands right now are absolutely too high. We do need to bring them down. And my primary goal in solving this is to add options that allow you to quickly spend energy as you work to basically advance. First area there for me to target would be a system, and I can't say that this is exactly how it will come through into the game, but the way I would imagine it is once you've completed the 3 stages of a dungeon, you basically unlock a quick play option. It allows you to spend your adventure energy in that dungeon to receive dungeon run rewards. Exactly what that percent would be, I can't say. Would it be 100% of the rewards that would be expected? Would it be 80? It may be less, but it would still allow you a very time-efficient way to spend your energy to make advancement without the need to go through a full dungeon run. So if you're stuck at an advancement point and you can't beat the next dungeon, you can go back to your previous dungeon, quickly spend your adventure energy when that notification comes up on your phone to raise your commander level, raise the level of your guardians, increase the amount of gear you've got, all of the other resources, so that you can then have your long engagement session being hitting that next dungeon stage. The other thing that we're looking at is just the number of rooms. This is something we've already iterated on a fair bit when it comes to the Endless Dungeon. When we launched in January, players were getting up into the high 70s in terms of number of rooms they could get to. We rebalanced that so that even on the lower levels of difficulty, you start to basically hit a wall around room 40. And we've rebalanced things so that there's much more incentive to go hit the higher levels of difficulty, both in sort of efficiency of time spent to points earned, and we're continually iterating on getting the rewards out of the higher difficulties aligned so that there's a reason to run them just for quicker rewards for less time investment. This doesn't solve the endless sort of engagement itself in being a cumulative system where it's cumulative points. Endless, if you want to be at the top of the leaderboards, requires a lot of time. Something we're looking at. There are solutions that cause problems, but also solve the time engagement, such as having it be only the highest score that you got on an endless run that determines your rank. This would dramatically lower the amount of engagement required and have it be an option to try and increase your top score or to do an endless dungeon run just to get rewards out. But these are sort of the things we're looking at on that front. Definitely looking to pull down the total time investment. I want to change my own mental ping when I see the notification for a full adventure energy to be like, oh yeah, let me go spend that quick. Not, oh gosh, that's a lot of time, because running dungeons to spend all 6 adventure energy right now, unless I'm doing my little cheaty send one guardian in to die, is hours. It's too much. Gonna pop over because Ryan sent through a couple of questions. Let me just read these quick. At what point can we mint a Web 2 Guardian to Web 3? Does it need X amount of enlightenment? I don't know if Howie is in chat and can potentially take that one for me. Minting has been undergoing some changes, so I don't have this answer top of mind. Yeah, take it, Howie.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? So sorry, can you repeat the question?
At what point can we mint a Web 2 Guardian to Web 3? Does it need a certain amount of like stars or enlightenment level?
No, you can mint it instantly, provided you have the minting resource.
Cool. So like even if as soon as I get a legendary, I could mint that legendary 3 as long as I've got the minting resource in place.
Yes, correct.
Cool. And Cornkex, I have a question about the star levels of different legendaries. I found in the metadata that Esports and Founder legendaries will start with 5 stars. Is that true?
That's not true.
Yeah, not true.
Yeah, that's not true. If the metadata has been data mined, it's because it's not finalized yet, and we're still definitely a placeholder.
Yep. That's probably still the Web3 Guardians from back during the Friends and Family tests. Not their final forms. Esports and competitive mode. Do you plan to include a competitive mode based on player skill and not player time? Not to mention an esports scene, at least one interesting competitive scene to watch that would attract new players. We are looking at additional ways to engage with Guild of Guardians that encourage competition without driving too much additional playtime. So these would need to be systems that you could pop into to quickly engage with and pop out. Current frontrunner on that front would be PvP, so basically quick lineup fights between different players with their PvP Guardian lineups. It'd be good to have an additional meta in the mix for Guardians as well, which I would like there. A deeper competitive mode that would be watchable all at esports is definitely a longer horizon ask. This is something that like Guild of Guardians in its previous form and this form aren't necessarily super well suited to. I need to think more on what this could look like. Like I could definitely see, streaming GOG and plenty of opportunity to discuss, meta and otherwise. But when it comes to like a truly watchable esport, that is a much higher bar. A little bit of story time here because esports is something that is near and dear to my heart, and something that I've worked with for a surprising amount of my career, and probably learned the most on at Wizards of the Coast, working on Magic the Gathering Arena as the MTGA basically became one of the premier spaces for esports for Wizards. And esports, in all of my experience, is never a growth path. It's not that you have esports and therefore people come into your game. Like, it's not about user acquisition. I have never worked on a product or know of anyone where it was esports that led to growth. What esports is, almost without fail, is retention. It's something that once you've got your user base in place, like esports evolves out of that user base. When you've got lots of players, they will stick around because of their engagement in that side of things. So in terms of like watching to attract new players, that is almost never the case. What you've got is engaged players who are watching an esports scene. So if you're looking at esports to basically solve growth, I can say from long experience that is not a good play. You would much better spend any money you're spending on esports in a growth funnel, on paid UA, on influencers, everything that works so much better to bring people into a product. Esports is not that. The new user to cost of esports the CPI there is insane. So I would dispel some of the myth that having esports would lead to growth. Having esports keeps people around, which is why it being a longer horizon ask, I think, is also okay. Some of this would be like, as we see Guild of Guardians continue to evolve, as we see how players engage with the systems, it will likely guide us to something that could work on that front. Okay, botting. So I talked just a little bit about this previously, and it will be something that will be a forever problem and challenge for Guild of Guardians. The question is, what steps will you take to prevent botting? The game is very bot friendly at the moment, and this will destroy the economy and should be a priority to address. So there is no silver bullet to anti-botting. Like, if there are incentives, and those incentives are higher value than the cost of running bots will always be in the system trying to exploit this. We do have built-in friction points in terms of like having it be something that the bots can turn fully into a benefit. So like Immutable Passport will have elements in it that we will trigger when people are looking to essentially extract value out of the system. We already have in place, just based off of the bots that are in regional test, data analysis that lets us identify bots with a fairly high level of accuracy. This is something that we're going to continue to improve, and it's also why we're not at this stage actively looking to push all of the bots out of the ecosystem. They are a really good tool for us on the analytics side right now to really robustify our ability to identify the behaviors of bot-style accounts versus normal players. And much like Gods Unchained, we are looking to gate rewards that bots would want to extract behind essentially skill balls. And this is where we have a challenge right now with Endless, because there is a lot of time investment needed to top a leaderboard in Endless, which gives bots an advantage. Bots have infinite time. But just having a baseline bot account without strong guardians to back it up, I think it would be challenging to get into essentially the payout levels of the leaderboards. It's something we're going to have to watch, though. We are looking at the bots that have been engaged in regional test loss really, really closely. We don't want them polluting our data. We don't want them harming the game. Right now, we're seeing less activity on the bot front, but all of this work will essentially set us up to identify and ban them more quickly once we're live, and then the war will start. They'll figure out what we're using to identify them, and they'll switch tactics, and it will be a fight back and forth. We are looking at some other opportunities with potential partners, basically not just using our analytics and people skills, but using AI to identify potential bot behavior. It's going to be a lot. And this is something that we've gone to with eyes wide open. And it is a priority to address. Okay, pets. The skills of pets don't fit into the new gameplay anymore. Will they change? So yes, this is a next stage update to the white paper to update the section on guilds, pets, and energy tokens. So the short answer here on pets is yes, we are looking to change up how pets provide incentives. These are in flux, though, as we work to hone in the balance of the primary game loop. Essentially, we're going to be looking to have the pets solve friction points in different areas of the loop. So having different pet types would also provide wider utility. So it's not just every pet solves all the problems, but certain pets solve certain problems, and then players can decide which pets make the most sense for them to engage. Workers, essentially aiding in crafting. So this would be a pet that increases the odds of crafting higher rarity gear. Could, when you're on the merge board, you merge something, increase the chance of a crit, which would increase crafting output. Additional crafting components in loot, things along that line. Scouts, essentially aiding in story dungeons to increase XP gain, gold earn, dungeon coin gains, essentially pets that would help you out while you're in dungeon. And then hunters, something that would aid essentially in endless dungeon points, loot, and beyond. This is all work in progress. As we're still adjusting the balance of these core loops, I can't say exactly what these will end up being, but hopefully this gives you some directional of where pets would fit into that sort of reward mix. As this solidifies, we'll keep adding more details into the mix. Ryan's typing. We'll see when that pops up. GOG token. How will GOG be distributed in the game? Can it be found in chests, leaderboard rewards, only from selling items? So GOG tokens will be utilized as basically a high-level leaderboard rewards. So essentially, top players in the leaderboards will be earning the majority of GOG's distribution. GOG's distribution would not go all the way down to the bottom of the leaderboards. Just got a quick read of what Ryan was talking about. This is part of that anti-bot mechanic. We want to make sure that essentially the most engaged players are seeing the rewards and not bots. We need to find what the right point is here too, because we need to get people just walked into the room because the lights turned off because I can't get the lights on from the motion detector, so clearly I'm a ghost. Because we also want to make sure that there are ways for players to get on to that sort of Web3 side of things. The most obvious path there would be from being able to sell some of their guardians that they have essentially minted into Web3 assets. But we will see how that works as the economy comes online. What I can say is it is very unlikely that we would be distributing gods in something like chests as a random reward. A lot of this does come down to, like, if there is gods in chests, bots would be all over that in a heartbeat, and they would be able to use whatever level of randomness so much more effectively than humans to extract from that system. So having skill, having player engagement be a core part of like that gods token distribution is important. All right. Gonna dive into as much as I can on guilds right now. The question is, can you tell us something more about guild tokens, because the information was very vague for them? Still going to be vague-ish, but should give you a little bit more insight into when things will snap more into focus. So essentially, when it comes to the development pipeline, we've got multiple phases when it comes to our implementation of guilds. The first phase of implementation has not started yet. This will be starting probably in March, with implementation on the MindLoader side of things. This has been pushed out slightly just because of the amount of iteration we're doing in regional test launch. We knew we were going to do some. We were realizing we're going to need to do more. And that iteration is more important than getting this up and running, because guilds will not come online until global launch. All of this testing, getting retention numbers up, is impacting things that are going to gate us on getting to launch. But as we go into implementation, phase 1 is going to be core functionality. This is the creation of the guilds in the client, with the guild token, naming, emblems, getting guild chat online, the ability for guild announcement, all of the admin that goes with promoting guild members, kicking guild members, recruiting guild members, daily login and activity rewards for guild members, which will provide rewards in guild currency that can be used in the guild store. And then, basically guild bonuses is the other part of this. So the guild being able to spend resources to improve stats on guild member guardians and the like. Phase 2 would be engagement systems to further so guild raids. Basically, guild gets together, works to take down a PvE boss that provide rewards that feed back into that guild currency, the store, and spending resources to upgrade guild bonuses. Phase 3 would be guild crafting. So this is a lot of what we're working with basically internal stakeholders on and the foundation to reach alignment on what this looks like, to make sure that we're meeting our commitments to the community around guilds, and that the systems we're building are sustainable. We've had a number of systems that we've pitched that we've had to kick back and take back into ideation. We have not gotten completely through here. We've got a design now that we're putting the final touches on before we circulate it more broadly, which I think has the legs to work within the ecosystem, be sustainable, and meet the commitments around guild crafting. That will be the next stage, actually getting that implemented. And then it's live operations beyond. Development of guilds doesn't end with guild crafting. Basically, guilds are a huge part of retention as well, much like esports. Having really good guild engagement, building out additional guild features. I can say with some assurity that I have thoughts here of what I would love to see on the guild front as we continue to build to reach some deeper guild engagement cycles. We've got lots of possibility space on this front that we will dive into so much more. But yeah, high-level overview of how that's sorting out. Will the community have an opportunity to contribute to the guild's design or GOG release, or GRG release the plan design and specifics for community feedback before going into development, and risking guilds missing the mark or not meeting expectations of the community. So once we have internal alignment and we have a plan that we believe works with internal stakeholders, works with MindLoader, we will bring that out to the community in deeper detail and do our best to integrate feedback into final design. I can't say that we will hit the mark with everyone in the community, and I can't say that we won't miss expectations of the community. I know, around guilds, the expectations are very high. But having a feedback process here, absolutely. We haven't been taking these iterative designs out to the community, largely because they're not at the stage where we have internal alignment yet. And we need to reach that mark first. We need to know that we're clear and aligned before we share it out for feedback. Soon. This is something that, as regional test has started to solidify, as ZKevm read-only has solidified, this is partly where I'm going to start turning more of my attention as well, and the team is freeing up a bit to put more attention on this. Because while it is... just really quick, when it comes to guilds, it is not that it is not important to us, but there's so much work just in getting to where we're at today that the team has had to do. We are continuing to work on guilds. It is now coming to the very forefront of sort of like full focus and attention. Can we reserve our names? Would not be funny to see certain names guilds be taken after promoting your guild for months and years. If the thing here, like a specific system for reserving names, I don't think is how I would approach this. With the limited number of tokens available, I don't think this will be a huge problem. And if it is a huge problem, it is on the scale where I will work with MindLoader to go fix this in the data myself to make sure that people who have longstanding guilds in the community aren't being spoofed, aren't having their names sniped out from under them. We will not let people name camp in that way. Just won't do it. That would be such a dick move. All right, so I was right here. There are a lot of questions on Founder Heroes. And as I was looking at just the amount of time we have, the amount of questions, I knew that there was no way I was going to also get through Founders Heroes before my hard stop. On this front, I'm going to work with Ryan to find time early next week to run another town hall to do a deeper dive into Founder Heroes so we can answer more of these questions more fully and have a little bit more of a dialogue versus this format where I was kind of talking at everybody. And yeah, hopefully we can all look forward to that. There's a lot to dive in here. Yeah, there's something, this is sort of at the stage where I think we're ready to get community feedback before we go into full-blown implementation on this front for the ZKevm read-only test, where a lot of this will come to the forefront for the first time. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time this morning. There was a lot to go through. I appreciate, again, so much all of the feedback from the community around regional test launch. I have, to some extent, been running around like a chicken with its head cut off as I try to process it all and get it all into order for execution. But that's been going really well. And I know for me, it's been the culmination of a very intense year since we signed with MindLoader to be at this point now. We will get we will get those numbers up. We will get those lines going up and to the right, and keep chatting you through how everything's going. I will see you all next week. And yes, go to sleep. Definitely go to sleep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Howie. Thanks, Clay.